Dom Link, it's your boy Ing. Welcome to another episode review. It is season 2, episode 3 of Walking Dead is Everything for Everything. So there's multiple storylines I'm gonna have to get through. In this one, I could go chronologically, but I didn't take notes, so I'm gonna have to go with how I remember it. So the easiest way to do this is by doing like cases per cases. So the first is of course Lori and Rick, and it's unbelievably like so we have Shane and Otis who are gone to get these who are gone to get these equipment, right? And it's kind of cool because in last episode we saw Shane being a total bro for Rick, and in this episode we get to see how much Rick cares about Shane and how he loves him, and how much he like I admire him, right? So it's kind of cool that we're getting to see that both are still in this friendship for a long time. I'm taking care of emptying these because I'm gonna clean up after, and it's important because at the end of the day, they were friends before this, and all the intricacy of Lori having gone out with Shane. I think Shane has a feeling for Lori, but I think at the end of the day, even if a lot of people are saying that Shane had feeling for Lori before, if Shane was willing to stop and respect that Rick was the husband before, why wouldn't he do it now? You know what I mean? It's a simple logic question. One of the they're talking about how they're Rick and Shane and Arthur are taking a long time, and should we do the what you call it, the operation, right? And it's kind of cool because they're talking about how we're supposed to see stuff, like Lori was the one I wanted to give up in the CVC, and now she has this feeling of I want to continue. So it's what are we doing? And it's kind of cool because Lori usually is more emotional than Rick, and she kind of bring him down by being very emotional. But in this case, she's actually the one that pull Rick up. It's like, you have to believe this is your son. Carl comes back in, and he talks about the deer, how saw the deer, and for that, Ricky is grateful because like the kid didn't care about what happened, he didn't care about getting shot, he didn't care about the church, he cared about something positive. So that really brings Rick in a good mood, and really makes him hopeful because at the end of the day, he was afraid that his son would never be the same. He was afraid that his son will always be like marked by this, and I think I think Rick is dealing with a situation of. I think Lori deals with a situation where it's we have to survive no matter what. No matter what, we have to survive. We're gonna find a solution. Rick is a bit more logistic. He's a bit more understanding that the situation is dire. He's like, well, we're in a shithole. The most important person in my life right now is Carl. How do I prepare Carl to for being able to it's a tough subject to bring up. How do I bring up Carl to be able to survive here? And then this father who always saying, oh, my son is young, and then this is becoming a man. When he gives there's a really touching scene where Carl's get up, right? And he's like, yo, it's really nice. It's really nice because Shane come back and he gives up everything. He gives Rick everything that he needed, and oh man, I'm going out of order. I'm so sorry. Back. I just sorry about that. I had to rewatch the episode because I watched season 2, episode 3, 4, 5 in a row. Okay, so Shane come back, and this is another timeline. So we're kind of done with Rick and Lori. The only thing I wanted to add, which was a really nice moment, was Ricky had this idea. He wanted Urshel comes in and says, "Yo, I don't have the tools I need for the operation. What do you want me to do?" And Rick wants to operate, but he understands that Lori is a part of him, is a part of this, and she has a word to say. So he tells her, "No matter what you want, I'll you have to give me an answer." And Larry say, yeah, okay, operate. And you can see that Rick is relieved that's the answer he wanted, but he wanted it to come from Lori because Lori needed to be sure that, yo, I want to have this. There's this part of me that believes that Ricky is doubtful it's going to work. He doesn't know if it's going to work. So he said, if I take the decision, she'll hate me forever. If she's part of the decision, maybe she'll she won't hate me as much. There's also like, yo, we're two parents. We have to take decisions together. So it's a big decision. I think together. I'm not gonna let because without being a dick to Lori, there's this part of it's not. I don't think it's Lori's fault. There's a lot of the camp responsibility that falls upon Rick's shoulder. And the fact that they fall upon Rick's shoulder, it means that he has to take a lot of decision. So it's normal that sometimes the decision you doesn't want to make because again, every time it's a bad decision, it's blame Rick, blame Rick. And as a good decision, it is about it is about Rick is the good guy, right? We have Shane and Otis, Chip is cool. So a lot of people are mad at Shane because he killed. Well, he didn't kill. He sacrificed his Otis so he could get away. But in this episode, you really see Shane really trying to save Otis, right? And at the end of the day, there's multiple times in the episode where it's like, yo, and leave me behind. I'll get some time because Otis is fatter, and Otis being fatter, he's not able to keep up with the horde. And the horde are with Shane. Shane he could run away, right? He could run. With Otis, he's barely running fast enough to keep away from the horde. He has to take breaks. So Shane is like, yo, if I'm alone, I'm gonna be able to to run, right? And the problem I think is that so it's very intricate. Otis being bigger, much bigger than Shane, is able to carry two bags. I don't think Shane can run with the two bags, right? So there's this issue of yo, I need somebody to help me. Otis can, I can stay behind or bring the shit, and I'll manage somehow. I'll manage somehow. We know that Shane saw a police car. Maybe he has a trick to. He wants to use the police car. It could be the occasion. Maybe he saw something else in the trunk, but he didn't show us the trunk. He didn't show us. So a lot of people are mad at Shane for sacrificing, or at least, yeah, sacrificing Otis for so he can survive. But he did really try to save him. And at the end, he said, yo, we're not going to make it out alive both. And he always said, yo, it's about Carl's. And it's kind of crazy because last episode I was talking about how they had to make a choice between saving Carl, who might be dead, or saving Sophia, who might be alive, but we haven't seen her. Right? So what are their choice? And their choice is the same that Shane has to make. But the group as in itself is gonna go the moral route. And Shane is gonna go, he's able to make decisions that are being an asshole, but still manage to pull off his weight. And so for example, you know that Otis could make it, right? And you know that Carl could make it. So he's like, okay, well, I need to save Carl. And Carl's more important than Otis, even though Otis is here fighting with me. So it's kind of cool how we're seeing them escape. It's nothing too interesting. It's kind of cool because we got Otis, who knows the school very well. He's able to say, hey, we're gonna go here, we're gonna go there, and with that, Shane would have not made it. But and the other way, Shane's a better survivalist, right? And weapon-wise, Shane weapon is better. Otis, yes, he needs to get headshot, and getting an headshot when you're running is not easy, right? So I think that they're both they both bring something to the table, but Shane does have more. Shane does have more like reason to live, and I do like Otis because Otis, although he's a man of God, and you know for a fact that Otis is going there because he feels guilty. He feels that it's his fault, and it is his fault. And he has to say to the boy, the second Shane betray him, it's like fuck you, I'm gonna kill you, right? So the guilt goes away and rage takes over, and that's the way to react because Shane did betray him, right? And at the end, there's a beautiful moment between Shane and Lori, and I completely misread it. Shane, it's funny because Shane doesn't show. Shane knows he did the good choices, and you see Rick and Rick's hug him, and he's like, they really love each other, which is nice. And Shane is like, yo, he doesn't want to tell Rick he did what he had to be done, and then you see Patricia, which was Otis' wife, and he starts feeling really guilty because like, yeah, I killed somebody to save somebody else, but that person had a life. And just took that away from them, and those people were staying at their house. So we're seeing kind of like a more morality question Shane, but morality wise did what he had to do. He cared more about Carl, and that was the way to go. Technically, Otis was responsible for Carl. The fact that Carl survived is his pay, they being repaid. Then he goes to see Carl to see if he's okay, because he did it for Carl. He loves Carl, and there's a scene in there that Lori tells them stay, and in my mind she's like, stay with Carl. You okay? So it's okay, stay with Carl. But then I understand later. You understand that she meant stay in the camp because Shane wanted to leave, and that's enough for him to want to stay. That's basically Shane and Odious. Now we got Maggie and Glenn. Very short lived, very short, but it is nice because Maggie and Glenn, we know they end up in a couple, but this is the very first part of Glenn. Glenn saying, "Oh, well, guess what? You're part of this group. You're important," and it's kind of crazy because we're seeing the same thing with Daryl. Daryl and Glenn, although are super important in the group. And I've been talking about how the hierarchy, like, oh, it's Shane, Rick, Daryl, and Glenn, but both Glenn and Daryl feels inferior to competing with Shane and Rick, and that's because of the. I think it's because of the uniform. It's because they represent something. They represent morality. They represent like authority, and Shane and Rick, although they don't see Glenn and Daryl as less. It is good that we get to see that, there's a hierarchy because in every group there needs to be a hierarchy. We talk about this in episode 6. So yes, there's this episode where Maggie, she tells Glenn like you need to be more. You need to be a better person because Glenn problem is that he follows. He completely only follows. And see, episode 5, he goes on well. We're gonna talk about it in episode 5, but all in all, he keeps on going and taking risks for the group, and the only reason is like, oh, they're my friend, and I'm hoping that somebody does the same thing for me. And Maggie's just like, yo, you've proven yourself enough. Don't you understand? Like, you're part of this, and it's like she's pushing Glenn to be more able to say no, I'm not gonna do it because Glenn, he feels like he owed them, but they owe him. It's this constant relationship of no, not necessarily relationship of I owe you, the relationship of we're in this together. I don't mind making sacrifices, but I cannot only be the one who's doing sacrifices. For example, in this last episode, they were telling, oh, T and Glenn, you're gonna go to the house. They have to go to the house, right? And Glenn asked, why is it always me? And he's complaining. It does seem like he's complaining, but it is always him, and it isn't fair. you know so all in all, this is a pretty solid moment. And the very last, I'd have to say, am I forgetting something? Oh yeah, Daryl and Andrea, and this is phenomenal. So the mental state of Andrea is not certain, and the way the show depict that is beautiful. So for example, it's pretty fucking cold, dude. Pretty fucking cold. Andrea, there's Carol in the other room missing her daughter and crying. Which fine. I had to go to the toilet. I'm so sorry. Fine. You want to clean your gun. You want to prepare your gun. That's fine. But you're seeing Carol cry, and you basically don't give a shit. And you got Daryl, who's supposed to be this, again, redneck who doesn't have any feeling, who isn't able of complex thought, and he's scared. He cared for, and this moment is so fucking well written. It's so well. It's amazing, to be quite honest. So what happened is, Dad was like, "Yo, we're gonna get it. We're gonna go get the girl." Because Carol, she's crying, and there's a huge shift in Carol after that because Carol gives a shit about Sophia, and she's crying and she's crying and she's crying. And when Daryl goes in the night, she starts crying, and then on that in that episode, she just said that, "Yo, I'm putting life of people at risk. Of course, I'm a mom, and of course, I care about Sophia." But I have to be caring about other people. I can't just go around and say, oh, save my daughter, save my daughter, save my daughter. It's not fair. And ultimately, that is a very healthy, very, very healthy way of thinking. But it comes at a cost. It's your mother. You feel bad about not caring about your kid. And not that she doesn't care about her kid per se, but it's more about the fact that her kid's in danger, and she's like, okay, well, I don't want to put people in danger. And again, that's the weak nature of Carol. In the beginning, she becomes a badass, but in the beginning, she's willing to sacrifice everything for anybody. There's a really, really fucking cool scene in the beginning. No, that's the next episode. But right, and that's about it. It's and then on the trip we got Dwight, we got Daryl, what is it called, Dwight, and Andrea were going on a hunt, and they meet this guy who hung himself, and it goes back to Andrea wanting to kill herself at the CVC, right? And it's kind of cool because he could avoid it, but again, Daryl doesn't give a shit. So he's like, okay, well, you wanted to do that. Look at what happened to him. And it's funny because Dale, try to stop Angela from killing herself. But all she had to see to not wanting to kill herself was somebody who did it, because once she sees that somebody did it, she's gonna understand that it's not worth it. And by understanding that it's not worth it, then you're convincing the person that, hey, there's a better option out there. And I think it's super important that we're seeing this. So in the case of Andrea, that she saw that the person died, and it's just such a cool moment. Daryl, he asks her if she's okay, and she doesn't answer, and she feels bad for the guy because she understands where he's coming from. He wants to die. So Daryl, he asks her a question. You say an answer for an arrow, and you see Daryl sacrificing an arrow for an answer. And although it doesn't mean much in the long run, it does prove that Daryl has a heart of gold, and we're gonna see that a lot more in this season. And then we come back to the camp. Dale gives Angela a gun back because he was scared for her, and she's like, "Thank you." And then Dale does ask a question. It's a beautiful question. He's like, "Do you forgive me? Are you forgiving me?" Because he can't live with the guilt anymore. And although, oh, Dale, I'm not the biggest fan of Dale. I'm not the biggest fan, but in this moment, he's probably the MVP of this episode, because he does say, "Look, I made some choices for you. I know I didn't want to, but I had the best intention. I hope you understand that." Then he asks you, "You forgive me?" And the question is important because yes, those actions they weren't necessarily something bad, but the case of taking the decision for her was bad. You shouldn't have done that, right? You know what's weird? Look at I'm sorry. Look at this, right? And look at this one. And this one is newer. So basically, when you're doing this in and out, it's strapping this plastic, and by strapping the plastic, it's easier than not. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, that's the episode. It was a super cool episode. I'll see you soon for episode 5. Do you know how it feels? Fucking amazing song.